to a very special edition of USA TV Talk News Sports Entertainment Live with Albert George Bruhn, yours truly, on this Tuesday, October 7th, 2014. 4 weeks from today is the election time here in the state of Connecticut. Right now, 3 people want to become governor. One is the incumbent, Mr. Malloy. The other, the Republican challenger, Tom Foley. And then there's a third, Joe Visconti, and we are interviewing him tonight. And please do give us a call if you have any question or comment about this race, governor's race, 792-4101. Again, 792-4101. You'll see the number at the bottom of your screen throughout the course of this hour. First of all, welcome.
Thanks for having me
to our program. You're in a very advantageous position right now. The last debate that took place, you have been blocked out of the other debates for peculiar reasons. It appears that way to the general public. But the bottom line is now you're going to be able to come into the arena of debates, and this might elevate your position overall. But let's get back down to basics. If you can tell the audience, tell us who you are, where you come from, where you were brought up, your education, background, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, I'm Italian-American. All my grandparents were from Italy, so my dad and my mom were first-generation Italian. We were raised and born in Hartford, Connecticut. I was born right across from Colts Park, where the Colt Peacemaker was made in Hartford, and attended the Hartford school system, the old Buckley High School in Hartford, and moved to West Hartford when I was in high school. Things got a little rough in high school in Hartford. The inner cities were tough in the early 70s, and I had 2 older sisters, so we moved to West Hartford, and I graduated from Hall High in West Hartford. And then I attended the University of Hartford, had a degree in electronic technology. I was really loving the sound engineering when I was younger, and my first job was as a stagehand. My family ran the stagehand industry in Connecticut. It's called IATSE Local 84. So my first job out of high school was working directly in theater at the Bushnell Auditorium and then the Civic Center. But I had a parallel career. My dad was a contractor, so before I remember, my father took me to work. Go to work on Saturdays with your dad when I was in grade school, and so I was raised in the construction industry at home and in the theater industry through my other part of my family. And I stayed in construction for 40 years in the trades, and we did projects that were, at first, back in the 60s, a lot of homeowners. Then we moved into major corporations. My dad and we did multi-million-dollar projects, Fortune 100 companies, the Aetna, just about every company you could think of in Connecticut. We did renovations, building alterations, and commercial alterations. I got involved with politics when I was in West Hartford with the Blueback Square development. It was a development that came to the center of our town, and I opposed the financials of it. They basically gave a no-bid deal, we called it, where the developer was able to receive $48 million in bonding for roads and garages. There was no bidding process, and I fought that, and there was no tying the developer to the bonds for 20 years. As of last year, 2013, as I predicted, the developer left America with his holdings, sold Blueback, and was never tied to the bonds. To me, that was cronyism. And you see that with the Malloy administration now, where they're giving millionaires and billionaire corporations our money. And so for me, I just was against, there was no bidding on it, and then the bonds are not tied to the developer. They could come in here, profit, do something, leave with the profits. I thought with the public treasury, they should be tied to the bonds and be married to those.
So the state is economically responsible for the payment of those bonds to the bank.
The town in West Hartford, but the state right now, what they're doing is, we're on the hook for those things. So there's this thing where private-public partnerships, and it's been a big to-do for the last couple decades. But when you're using the public treasury, especially like in Connecticut with Governor Malloy, where you're giving out the First Five program, and you're giving money to, even if it's Pratt & Whitney, United Technologies, those are major billion-dollar corporations with boards of directors. We should not be in the business of giving money at that level to those corporations that could go get private loans. It's extortion. They'll pack up and leave if we don't give them loans or tax breaks. And there's two worlds of thought. Well, we should because they're going to leave, you know. The small business owner is the job creator. If we're going to help anyone, we need to help the small business owner. That's where the jobs are created. The major corporations have been downsizing for 20 years, doing it cheaper, going offshore. They're not here to build their employee base.
But again, that offshore company operation, whatever, that is illegal though, right? I mean,
No. Corporations have foreign, you know, Coca-Cola, they have, you know, branches all over the world. I'm Republican, so for me, it's not about that. It's about the fact that why would we be trying, we're not the state of Connecticut Bank and Trust, and this is what Malloy has done. You would expect Republicans to want to give money, low interest money, and some of it free for job creation over years to major corporations. And I just don't see it that way. The ones that are here are staying here. And we're working on a budget right now, and we've been working on it for about a month and a half. We can't find a way with the $1.4 billion deficit coming for the next 2 years consecutively. This is by the Office of Fiscal Analysis. It's a part of the General Assembly. The governor knows these numbers. Him and Tom Foley, neither one of them are talking about the $2.8 billion deficit. And that's a deficit with $300 million built in for revenue increase. In other words, they believe the state will receive $300 million more from
where?
From the private sector, just growth. So they factor in $300 million, and still there's $1.4 billion each year coming.
if not from the private sector, then from taxpayers.
No. They
You don't
actually.
think that the taxes will be raised during?
Oh no, that's what I want to talk to you about. I believe that we are trying to find a way where they won't be. And so you're watching these debates, and you're not seeing the governor or Tom Foley. First of all, Tom Foley, who I expected to, and I was shocked he didn't, call for spending cuts. He wants to flatline spending, which means it increases 7%, $300 million just for debt service. That's called flatlining. It's not spending cuts. Then he doesn't want to speak to unions at all and ask them for anything. We can't get it from them, but we must ask them with $1.4 billion each year coming up deficit. So Tom doesn't want to cut spending. He won't ask the unions for money. Where's his magic wand? The governor believes we have a surplus. He basically borrowed money and didn't pay the bills with the money, and he thinks there's a surplus. And this is what the debates, which you'll be hearing me speak about, just how far in the hole we are. Jonathan Pelto, who's running as a writing candidate, he's got up to $4.8 billion. If you look at some of the models of what's coming in the next 3 years, I don't want to be doom and gloom. This is the Office of Fiscal Analysis showing where we are. And it's inevitable to have tax increases if we can't get concessions from unions, and it's not their fault. I'm going to put a number on the table and say, here, can you give us this number? Find your own cuts. Find your own savings for us. If they say no, you're going to have a tax increase. You cannot cut $1.4 billion out of the budget. You just can't. Everywhere you look, you can cut spending a lot, hundreds of millions, but to get $1.4 billion, and neither candidate will address that. And I believe if you're going to run for office and get elected, we don't want tax increases, okay? We're not saying we're going to, but I can't find a way right now where we would not if we don't get concessions.
Taxes will be raised.
They'll end up going up, and my plan is if they have to be raised because there are no union concessions and we can't cut enough, and we'll cut everywhere we can cut. Every department will receive a cut. This is going to be a pruning, not trimming, what's coming. And we're going to try to save as many jobs as we can so we don't fire people, because I'll say it again, I'm not here defending union workers or workers, but it isn't their fault. We're going to need more government services still stuck in a recession for the elderly and an aging population, and we can't afford it anymore. So not to have layoffs, we're going to need the unions to help us. But we're not going to tell them, here's what you do, tell us what you can give us. If they say no, you have tax increases. In my first place, they will look to increase taxes on the major corporations. And we're looking at what number that would be, why the small business owners are leaving. They're just closing shop up. I have heard 3 businesses in the last week that are closing, small businesses. They can't afford to stay here. Those are the job creators, from restaurants, just right across the board. So what's happening is the major corporations, they can afford a point or two, whatever the number is going to be that we have to increase if we need tax revenue. To burden the income tax anymore, we're already over 50% of our general revenue coming from income tax. People can't afford it. And there's been something where they say tax the rich. Well, the rich can just decide to register their second home in Florida as a residency.
In the state of Connecticut, they can do this?
if they own a home in Connecticut and they own a home in Florida, they can switch to residency and keep their home and avoid the income tax. So we're going to chase them away. I don't want to chase the wealthy away. I'd like them to give more to not-for-profits, to charities, to help us do the things they can. And we hit the major corporations, the big ones, if we need anything. Let's say we need $400 million and we're not getting it. After we get some concessions and we do our cuts and we're short, then the first place to turn should not be the individual or the small businesses.